Any questions from the audience for any of our speakers? Yes.
You mentioned the level, the security levels.
Yep.
Possibly which were, so that you didn't describe what the alternative could be. Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, when I said that, and again, I wasn't trying to erode our own work. I mean, the security levels are well established now and they're being used very effectively. But if I had to do it all, and again, it's my own personal comment, if I had to do it all over again, I would base it on risk. A broader definition. Risk is threat, vulnerability, and consequence. The current security levels are based on the perceived capability of the attacker. That's the threat component of risk. But it doesn't talk about the vulnerability and the consequence, right? So it's a subtle distinction, I guess, for most people, but I would base it there. Other parts of standard, like 3-2, for example, is all about how to do a risk assessment. And it talks about risk is defined as a function of threat, vulnerability, and consequence.
We're adopting that risk assessment approach and using the levels, but we've done the same thing. We're basically mapping it to security target level.
Yeah.
What we are searching for the worst case consequences.
Right. And that's, I've, again, this is just me speaking, but I've come through the years to a realization that ultimately consequence is what the asset owner really needs to focus on, right? Because that's what you're trying to prevent. But thanks for the question. Yes.
Well, our ambition is that starting with version 2.1, we will start having commercial products available. Suppliers will have the ability to put some commercial products together. You notice in version 1, we only have functionality. So that's connectivity functionality, interoperability functionality. But we are a process control architecture, so we need to have that those control applications to be able to run and have products to fulfill the OPAF.
Yes, over here.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Why don't we use the mic?
Okay, yeah, hold your question for a second. We'll get the mic over here. Yep.
Sorry about that. I got the mic first. On OPAS, there was a slide there that showed the architecture and then a layer across the central part of the system connecting to the devices. Is that a message bus or is that OPC? What's on that part of the system where the devices are talking to each other and to the devices above?
Yeah, I think, the middle part, or the connectivity in the bottom, I think we call the south and the north. So the south is the connection to the I/O. You could have a component with direct I/O, a physical component with direct I/O. So that's one way of getting the signals in, right? Another way is through the north interface. The north interface is the one connecting to the so-called Ethernet of today, or the wireless Ethernet, the connectivity framework. And then from there, you can run, yes, OPC UA and bring the signals that way too. The south could be also, by definition, another OPC, or Ethernet interface supporting OPC UA.
So there's a standard that looks similar called Open Field Message Bus. Would you say that communication is a field, like a message
Field bus?
Yeah.
No, it could be, but we're not there yet. So, yeah, that's not being standardized yet.
Thank you. Pays to wait. Easy question. I heard when Keith was talking about some of the NIST standards, there's a concept of profiles so that individual use cases could focus their requirements down to a profile. And I'm wondering for 62443, for example, with 4.2 or 4-2, if there are any plans for profiles in the future.
Simple question, complicated answer. The topic of profiles is a very contentious topic in the 62443 related community right now. You notice we always say ISA, IEC 62443. That's a collaboration between the ISA 99 committee and IEC Technical Committee 65, Working Group 10. The Europeans are very interested in profiles. The ISA 99 committee somewhat less so, because it's kind of hard to explain. Some of the standards in the series were not really written to be applicable to use with profiles. But you mentioned 4-2, it's specifically, that's one that the authors of that don't feel profiles are necessary. So the short answer is we're still discussing this. And so IEC through the IECEE, which is the people that do the certification, they will be coming up with profiles of some parts of 62443. That's where it'll come from first. So we're working our way through the issue right now, I guess is the simplest way to, it's not a very satisfactory answer, but that's what I can tell you. Other questions? Down here in the front? Larry, get your exercise.
So I'm curious for all the presenters up here, talk about the different standards. What does success look like for those specific standards? Kind of, I guess, more of an open-ended question, but what does that success criteria look like in your guys' minds?
Who wants to take that first?
Industry adoption?
Yeah, I would say the same thing, industry adoption, both on across the board for the 3 different stakeholder categories. We're seeing a lot of interest and uptake on the product side. That's a little bit more straightforward than some of the others for the integrators and the asset owners. The standards that are oriented towards the product suppliers like the 4-1 and 4-2, they're the most recent ones that were published. And they had the advantage that they were the most recent ones published, and 10 years of working on the other ones created a body of knowledge that was helpful for publishing a better set of specs.
Yeah, and I would concur that it's adoption, but it's also being able, like in the case of OPAP, to use the standard. So adoption is using, right? So we can use them, not necessarily, some of them are meant to be used as a standard that are applicable for the different groups of stakeholders, as you saw, system integrators, asset owners, or product suppliers, even service providers. In our case, there are the ones that we have been in the product suppliers have been used for several years, and they are being in use. So, in the case of OPAP, we're trying to also make a reference implementation, not implementation, use, application of the standard. So standards can be used, are defined, so I don't think we need to keep defining new, it's starting to apply them.
Yeah, so one of the overall objectives is to move cybersecurity from this kind of misunderstood black art into an engineering discipline. And so, the standards provide a foundation for that. If you look at the safety world, that's the safety standards, the SIL standards have been around for 30 years. And there's a lot of history that's been applied to them to institutionalize practices all across the board. So that's the objective, is to see behaviors, practices, institutionalize, where a lot of things that seem novel today are going to be everyday business that you don't even see anymore, like crumple zones in cars.
Yeah, I give you a somewhat roundabout answer, not a long answer, but just I'll approach it from a slightly different direction. I've done a lot of coaching and mentoring of people throughout my career, and I always tell people that all of your goals come down to 2 basic fundamental goals. And the first one is have fun, and the second one is make a difference. And if you're managing your career and you're having fun and making a difference, then you're in a good place. I'm not suggesting that developing standards is having fun, but people that develop standards have a passion for it, and it's sort of fun. But at the end of the day, the make a difference has to kick in, and that's what adoption's all about. So every time I get a call from someone or hear from somebody saying, we've been applying some of the concepts in 62443 to rail transportation or big vehicles or something, it's great. You're making a difference. So I think that's my answer to your question. Any last questions? We've got maybe time for one.
I'm told that we have to.
Yeah, we got about 4 minutes left, so.
We have one last question.
Yeah.
Just to make sure that you get your steps, Larry. I tend to agree. Doing standards only once in a while has some funny components, but nevertheless, it's important. I'm not 100% certain whether I misunderstood or not, but did I understand you right? Did you say IEC 62443 is underway of being a horizontal standard?
That's what I understand from Rudy Biliardi at IEC, is that they're trying to basically push this concept of it being a horizontal standard to avoid duplication of effort.
I'm a member of IEC DC 65, and of course we have this discussion, but I guess there's quite some headwind.
No, probably. There always is.
Yeah, but in this case, it's pretty strong. So I just was wondering whether I misunderstood something or I'm probably not up to
Well,
date.
we might have overstated it, so I appreciate that clarification. So in future, we'll qualify that statement a little bit.
Fair enough.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone, and thanks to the panelists and the speakers. I appreciate you coming.